All right, so the topic I wanted to look at today was the new dietary guidelines for Americans, which obviously will have a ripple effect around the world, have been released, and they've caused quite a stir. And so I thought I would today give a few reflections on some of sort of a top level overview of what they have, what they're recommending. And I'm actually going to go, there are 8 recommendations that have emerged from these dietary guidelines. And I'm going to give them, viewing this through a lifestyle medicine lens, I'm going to give my 1 to 5 star rating for each of these recommendations. But I would love for you to engage, and maybe you can even do this in the chat. As we go through, you can decide, you might differ to my appraisal, and you can offer what you think, what star rating you would give, 1 to 5 stars for each of these following recommendations. So, first of all, just a little bit of history, backstory. You all probably remember this, and I'm sure this has been around for a long, long time. It actually emerged in the 1990s, but it was the healthy food pyramid. And you can see it was this sort of obviously a pyramid type shape. And down the base there was sort of the cereals and the breads and the grains and rices and pastas and all the rest of it. That was meant to be the foundation of sort of a healthy diet. And then we moved up there to a level you have all your fruits and vegetables, which is great. Then in that sort of, in the 90s or so, the next layer up, you can see it's getting thinner and thinner and narrower, indicating eat or consume less of this, was the sort of, the meats and dairies. And then up the top was the sweets and the ultra processed food. So that was considered to be the healthy food pyramid. They did move away from that just for a little while. Well, actually, it was probably about 2010, I think, that we started to see this, where instead of a pyramid shape, they went to a healthy plate shape. And they just sort of felt that this was a better way, an easier way for people to conceptualize, this is what my plate should look like. And you can see there about half of the plate was meant to be dominated by fruits and vegetables. About another quarter was sort of grains or those grain-based products like your rices and all the rest of it. Protein was about just a little less than a quarter, and then had dairy or dairy alternatives off to the side as well. So here is the new food pyramid. Well, and when I say pyramid, it is a pyramid, but what they've done is they've flipped it. So we no longer have the food pyramid like this. It's actually an inverted pyramid. And I think that probably that was quite intentional, because when you read the new guidelines, there's very much seems to be a theme or a messaging that, hey, you know what? We're trying to flip the lid on the previous guidelines. We're actually creating a new paradigm here for what it might look like. And you can see, down what was the base, those sort of whole grains and all the rest of it, that's now just a tiny portion and sort of eat a little bit of it. Whereas the bulk of it up the top there, you can see a thing where you can see the food items. So in the guidelines, and you can check them out for yourself, but there's actually 8 key recommendations, and I'm going to just quickly go through these 8 and give them, as I said, a star rating. And as we do, let's see what your star rating might be too. So here's number one. Number one recommendation is eat the right amount for you. And the whole idea here is that, we're all different, and we all have different needs, and we have different activity levels, and we're different sizes, and we're different shapes. So obviously we have different requirements. And I like that they talk about the right amount for you. We know that, for example, that there's the principle like hara hachibu in Japan, where they say about leaving the table 80% full. And I think this messaging, about eating the right amount of food. In fact, Michael Pollan, he wrote the book In Defense of Food. He actually did. He was a journalist, but he did big picture view of everything we know about nutrition research. And his little sort of summation of it all was eat real food, mostly plants, and not too much. So I think that messaging, this one here, I actually like. I think and I've given it 5 stars. So I don't know about you. How many stars would you give to that recommendation? Eating the right amount of food for you. So we're off to a good start. Okay, here goes number 2. Prioritize protein foods at every meal. And they are recommending here, you can see in point number 2 there, consume a variety of protein foods from animal sources, including eggs, poultry, seafood, red meat, as well as, and includes and makes provision for plant-based protein foods, including beans, peas, lentils, legumes, nuts, seeds, and soy. This one here I find really interesting. In fact, I find it quite intriguing that this would be bullet point number 2. Number 2 recommendation to prioritize protein. Look, to be honest, protein is one of the essential ingredients or nutrients. I do think that, and me personally, as I get a little bit older, I think there's some good research showing that as you age, having slightly increased protein intake isn't a bad thing. That said, a very, very small percentage of our population are deficient in protein, don't intake enough protein. Normally, it's only people that have some sort of eating disorder, where they're on the celery-only diet or something like that, that fail to meet their protein requirements. So I am really intrigued that they've led, number 2 point with this one here, prioritize protein at every meal, and particularly the type of proteins that they're recommending here. Friends, and you might be wrong, so I don't know, how many stars would you give to this one here? Viewing it through a lifestyle medicine lens, I'm actually giving this one a 1 star. And the reason being is that when it comes to lifestyle medicine, when it comes to the prevention, management, even treatment of chronic diseases, I don't know, well, all of the featured studies, the big studies which have demonstrated that that is possible, have actually prioritized plant-based eating patterns. And certainly protein hasn't been a dominant factor in it at all. Where I think the huge missed opportunity here is, and this is why I've given it 1 star, is that what I would have loved to have seen here, instead of prioritize protein, where we have, as I said, it's only a few percent of our population don't consume adequate amounts of protein. Over 90% of people don't consume enough fiber. And I actually think I would have loved to have seen this say, prioritize fiber at every meal. I think that would have been, in terms of shifting the dial on population health, if people actually follow through and do this, I think that would have been a lot more effective and a lot more astute. So I've given it 1 star. I'd be interested what your rating might be. We'll talk about that a little bit later. Number 3 recommendation, consume dairy. And not just dairy, they're actually advocating for full fat dairy, albeit with no added sugars. This one interests me once again. In fact, it's interesting that there's been somewhat of a move away from dairy over the past decade or so. Certainly plant-based dairy supplements, oat milks and soy milks and all the rest of it, that industry has boomed. So it's a huge industry now, and the dairy industry has suffered. So I'm intrigued that this would be one of the frontline messages. This is recommendation number 3, that we need to consume more dairy. It does actually say, and if you go into the sort of the deep dive of the recommendations, it does allow for the use of some sort of plant-based alternative or dairy alternatives. But once again, it's interesting, even in this bullet point 4, the bullet point 1 there, dairy is an excellent source of protein. Once again, there's a very heavy push towards protein consumption. And once again, this intrigues me. So, viewing this through a lifestyle medicine lens, and you might be completely different and see it differently, and we'll be interested to hear what your rating is. But I'm actually giving this one a 1 star again. In fact, T. Colin Campbell, who wrote the China study, one of his key messages, and he's a bit of a luminary in the lifestyle medicine world. He actually found that dairy was not a promoter of good health and from a lifestyle medicine perspective. Okay, so I've gone 5 star, 1 star, 1 star, but we're coming back. So here we go. This is the 4th recommendation. Eat vegetables and fruits throughout the day. And look, I don't think that there is anyone that's going to be contesting this one. In fact, I know that there's often nutrition wars and people get so hung up on, you should be paleo and you should be this and that and all the rest of it. I think the one thing that all should be agreeing on is eating more fruits and vegetables. That is a non-negotiable. And in fact, any eating pattern, in my opinion, that discourages the consumption of fruit and vegetables is going in the wrong direction. So this one here, I am awarding 5 stars. So we're back up there, friends, which is a good thing. I wonder what you would rate in that regard. Recommendation number 5, focus on whole grains. I like this. And once again, many of
Darren,
the...
we don't see the screen. We don't have your pictures.
Oh, okay. Let me try. What's going on there? Are you seeing that now? Oh, I must have clicked on something wrong. Sorry. So,
We missed number
We
we
don't.
missed
We
number
didn't see
four
the
on the
one
screen.
before.
okay. So number 4 was eat vegetables and fruits throughout the day. And then number 5 was focus on whole grains, where we're at the moment. And by the way, if you want to check these out for yourself, just jump on just Google the 2026 dietary guidelines for Americans, and you'll see all these key messages there. I like this one. I've given it 5 stars. I think that obviously sometimes grains get a bad rap. And look, obviously if you're grain intolerant, then you need to be mindful of that and do what you need to do. But refined grains, yes, they can be problematic, but whole grains, you know what? In fact, I was involved in developing a sort of a nutrition-driven sort of lifestyle medicine intervention called CHIP some time back. And one of the key things that the founder of that program advocated was start your day with a 7-grain, whole grain type of mix. So I like the fact that the whole grains have started to make an appearance as well. This one here, number 6, incorporate healthy fats. Once again, I'm intrigued that, for example, healthy fats, the point says, are plentiful in many whole foods such as meats, poultry, eggs, seafoods, and then full fat dairy makes a mention there. I'm not sure particularly if people are already following principle number 2, which was to prioritize protein at every meal. I don't think we need to be banging a drum again saying, hey, by the way, get some healthy fats in there as well. And I think the word healthy, maybe that could be, certainly could be contested as it is. So this one here, I've actually given it a 1 star. Maybe you disagree, maybe you differ. We'll get to hear your opinion shortly. All right, getting close to the end, number 7. And I think we make, once again, a bit of a comeback here. Limit highly processed foods, added sugars and refined carbohydrates. There's a lot of research now, a great deal of interest, particularly in ultra processed foods and their connection to, poor health and well-being. And so I don't imagine, excuse me, that there is anyone going to be contesting this one. I've given it 5 stars. And then last of all, their recommendation to limit alcoholic beverages. Probably unsurprisingly, for me as a teetotaler, I'm giving this 5 stars. I actually think that there's this. I know some people try and argue that there are certain alcoholic beverages that can be helpful for certain things. I think that the research doesn't lean that way myself, so I abstain myself. So I've given it 5 stars. Maybe once again you have a different perspective on that. And we would love to hear your thoughts. So I know that I've gone through pretty quick there, but here are the reflection questions when we break up that I'd love you to consider. First of all, did your star ratings differ to mine? What do you think? So I actually only either went 5 or 1, didn't I? Maybe you've got some grey in there. Number 2, do you think that there are any missed opportunities with the new dietary guidelines for Americans? Certainly, I think the message of eat more fibre is a missed opportunity from my perspective. And then question 3, which is I suppose where it gets very pragmatic, will the new guidelines actually affect how you eat? Did you even know that there were new guidelines out there? And do you think that they'll affect behaviour? What I will say, one thing very quickly on that, they will affect the eating behaviours of some people, because what will happen is that government-funded organisations, like, for example, school, breakfast programs or school lunch programs, will have to fall in line with these regulations. So, but will it affect you? We'd love to hear about it.